conversation around natural gas production and natural gas implementation and infrastructure here in the Rockies as well as in North America, Kelly. Our guest today is David Hill, the Vice President of Natural Gas Economy Operations at Encana, based here in Denver. Welcome back, David.
Thank you.
And Kelly, this has been so far such an interesting conversation and really, something that I don't know a lot about because I'm not an energy person per se. And we were talking during break about things, David, and it was funny because safety, I think, is one of the things a lot of consumers are really scared about, and the infrastructure thing. And I know we had to go to break before this, but talk about how many stations Encana has here in the Rockies.
Yeah, just total stations in Colorado, natural gas fueling stations by us and others, there's 32.
Wow.
Which two and a half years ago there were 22.
Oh.
So we've seen in the last couple of years several stations being built. Encana's built 2 stations here. We have in Colorado. One is currently operating up just north of Fort Lupton, and the second we're under construction right now in Parachute. And we've also helped fund some stations. So we helped fund a station in Rifle so our vehicles could fill up there, and a couple of stations we've worked with Weld County commissioners to put a couple of stations up in Weld County to help fuel our fleets as well as some of the other producers. So in Colorado, 32. There's probably 4 or 5 stations in the different phases of financing and construction. So maybe by the end of this year, we'll see close approaching 40, which is a lot of stations compared to where we were. 100% more.
Well, and a huge investment on Encana's part.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys are in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
Because I think you said it's anywhere between $1 million to $3 million to put one of these islands even in a gas station.
Yes.
That's a lot of investment from the Encana organization.
Yeah, I mean, when we looked at this as, is it viable, sustainable, we felt it was, and then our management asked to demonstrate it. Go demonstrate this is real. And while we have begun the demonstration phase, we realized it actually is a business. So we're developing a business around this. We're moving downstream into the retail and bulk fuel selling business where we're offering fueling solutions and fueling logistics to customers, which is something we hadn't even thought about 3 years ago, being in this kind of a business. So it's quite exciting. We see the future as definitely bright for this opportunity in North America. And it's that abundant story that brings that sense of this time around it's going to work because we're not going to see a shortfall of natural gas. That we've been able to explore and find all this natural gas in this country. Why not use it?
Yeah, definitely. And circling back to what Jan started with is the safety issue. So these fueling logistics, one thing is that I see in talking to a lot of the people that I talk to is there an issue with the high pressure of natural gas and how safe are these vehicles?
Yeah. And that's a really common question we get with any alternative fuel is we're very familiar with gasoline, very comfortable with it. But we're not familiar with, say, natural gas. But we don't realize, again, it's in our home. We're around natural gas every day. So people ask about the safety. So when we talk about natural gas, the flammability of natural gas, when I look at all the aspects of fuel, natural gas is actually a more safer fuel than diesel or gasoline. So it's more difficult to ignite. It has a very tight amount of oxygen needed. And if you have the right amount of oxygen, you can ignite it. If it doesn't have enough, it's too lean. If it has too much oxygen, it's too rich. So it's safer than gasoline and diesel. It has a lower or higher auto ignition temperature than diesel or gasoline. So the amount of heat needed to ignite it is higher. So it's more difficult to ignite. That's why it's been a tough fuel to put into an engine because it's hard to make it combust, right? So you need a higher temperature of combustion. So it's safer in that aspect. It's lighter than gasoline. So if you have a diesel or gasoline leak in your garage or in your home or in an accident, it pools. And what catches fire is the vapor, not the liquid. So for gasoline, if you had an incident where it was released, it's lighter than air, then it dissipates and actually blends with the air. So it's harder to ignite it. So it's safer from that aspect in an accidental release or an accident. When you talk about pressure, I think that's a really good question. These are cylinders that are met very strict standards on safety. So they're pressure rated to 2.5 times their rating. So when we talk about pressure, I think that's a really good question. These are cylinders that are met very strict standards on safety. So they're pressure rated to 2.5 times their rating. So when we talk about pressure, I think that's a really good question. These are cylinders that are met very strict standards on safety. So they're pressure rated to 2.5 times their rating. So We were talking earlier about CNG being at 3,600 pounds. So those cylinders are tested almost to 10,000 psi repeatedly until failure. They go through a flammability test, they go through a drop test, they go through actually a gunshot test. What would happen if you have a high pressure cylinder and a gun is fired at it? Would it explode? That's Hollywood, right?
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't explode.
Yeah, Hollywood really does a disservice because
it's true.
I'm like,
So if you look at the safety record, and when we think about those cylinders, they have to be bolted into the frame of the vehicle. They just aren't laid into your trunk. So our gasoline tanks are plastic or aluminum. We look at these CNG tanks, and they're much heavier, much safer, and they're bolted to the frame, so they actually make the vehicle safer. So the high pressure is the concern, but again, it's been tested. If you look at the long-term safety record of natural gas vehicles in this country, we have very strict standards to build to and install to. Our safety record in natural gas is much more superior than gasoline or diesel.
David, you're talking about the natural gas vehicles, and you mentioned something in the first segment about that there are conversion kits or conversion companies that can do this with vehicles. And so let's say that I drive a mid-size SUV. I don't drive a big Yukon or Tahoe or anything like that, but I don't want to drive a Chevy Volt either. Can I convert mine, and is it easily done?
The quick answer is no to both.
Okay.
And there's a good reason. And again, it's really back to the safety. So if you want to convert a vehicle, you have to use an EPA certified kit.
Okay.
And there are several manufacturers in the country that manufacture EPA certified kits. And those certified kits are really about the emissions. They're very strict on the emissions of our vehicles in this country for gasoline, propane, anything, right? So those kits are very expensive to certify, no matter what fuel it is, so they're very limited. So if you want to convert a vehicle, you'd go to the EPA website. They actually have a website that lists the EPA certified kits and who the manufacturer is. So typically, because we're talking about it, it's mainly fleet type vehicles.
Okay.
So vans, work vans, pickup trucks, and sedans.
So not your average consumer vehicle, just the fleet type vehicle for the sedan. But other than that, it's mostly fleet right now.
Right, and then
that's the conversion.
Yeah, and then so we talked about the Honda Civic, is you can buy that from your dealer, but the number one selling vehicle in America is the pickup truck. So,
especially here.
Especially here. So those are now available to us as consumers.
And what do they cost? I mean, if I wanted to convert my pickup truck, what does that cost to do?
What's it cost? That's a good question. So for us as consumers, that cost can be $9,000 to $12,000 on top of your vehicle. And that really, 50%, 60% of that is the cost of the tank to put in. And then it's the certification cost and the installation cost to put on the vehicle. So there's a premium there right now. And there's a premium for all of our alternative vehicles because there are not a lot of them being sold. So the more they get sold, the more that premium comes down. And it's pretty much simple economics there, but we have to let people know about them, get more of them out there, and see that price come down. So it's an expensive proposition. The Honda Civic natural gas has a premium of about $6,500 on top of compared to its natural gas equivalent.
Yeah.
So that's when we look. Are there incentives out there to help us, right? And that's what helps increase the adoption of alternative fuel vehicles. So today, federally, there's no vehicle incentives for us for natural gas. There are for electric incentives. In Colorado, we've been a leader in alternative fuels, and Colorado has incentives, and the incentives are being phased out because the right thing to do with incentives is to put them in place and put a sunset on them, and then see what happens with the market. So today, as a consumer or fleet, in the state of Colorado, we have there's a 35% tax credit you can get back from the state for alternative fuel vehicles and natural gas. Several natural gas vehicles qualify for that. Not a tax attorney, so definitely want to consult your tax professional on that, whether you qualify. But it's there, and it's there to help fleets and consumers make that switch.
That transition.
Yeah, to test it. And so federally, for natural gas vehicles, there's a fuel credit that's available for the companies that dispense the fuel. They just did a tax extenders, as we rolled out of the year. And that one of the things that were in the tax extenders bill was a 50-cent credit for all the alternative fuels, ethanol, propane, and natural gas. So that's there at the federal level. We talked about the home fueler. There's a $1,000 credit from the federal government for a home fueler for natural gas. And so those are the things that are in play right now. But unfortunately, sometimes at the federal level, they pick a fuel. They try to pick a winner. And I think what we really like to see is a policy that encourages all the alternative fuels. Right. You know, a level playing field, then let the market pick. You and I pick which fuel we want. But we do need to increase our domestic use of our own fuels. And it'd be nice to see our government step up and create a level playing field for us as consumers.
Well, talking about that, we talk about governors that are pretty out front on things, and one of them is Chris Christie in New Jersey for solar and his support of a number of different energy industries. And here in Colorado, Governor Hickenlooper has been very supportive of the natural gas industry and has urged creation of these in-state markets for natural gas. What do you foresee happening with Governor Hickenlooper and here in Colorado as far as legislation that would help, or even education that would help get the word out?
Well, I think Governor Hickenlooper really stepped up about a year ago with Governor Phelan in Oklahoma.
Oh, right,
And I think they did something that was unprecedented, where they aren't going to wait on the federal government. They're going to do something about it. And again, let's look at our own fleets. So within each of those states, the governors looked at their fleets, and they developed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU. And just those two came together and signed an MOU to say we want to look at, evaluate, and get Detroit to build vehicles for us, natural gas, and we want to implement that in our fleets. Since that time, 22 states have signed on to that MOU.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And they've actually put an RFP out over those states, and we're seeing lower cost from Detroit, from our manufacturers. So the vehicle costs are coming down when you put a larger, if you will, bid out. So the governor is really stepping up on that forefront. And again, he's looking at the economic and the environmental impact of this fuel. And why aren't we using it in a state that has abundant resources of natural gas?
Right.
So we see that moving forward. And definitely through the Governor's Energy Office, we're seeing outreach and education for all the alternative fuels. And that's really important, again, is letting people know there's choices. And Colorado can lead. And we are leading, as an example, across the country, whether it's electric vehicles, propane, and natural gas. We're stepping up, and our infrastructure's reflecting that. Mm-hmm. So it's really exciting.
So it is exciting.
It is exciting, and we're talking about mostly a local strategy, but you mentioned we need more of a federal strategy, a national strategy around this from our federal lawmakers. And do you foresee, what legislation, I guess, is in play to bring about a larger national discussion? And are they gearing up to create more of a national energy policy for the United States, or will it continue to be this sort of random, locally driven strategy?
Well, it's a tough time.
Yes, it is
in the country, right? From a fiscal
issues
perspective. So tax credits and things that take money away from the Treasury, I think, are tough discussion items at the federal level. So, and we all have to respect that. We need to balance our budget. We all balance our budgets at our homes, so we need to do it at the federal level. So again, I think that what we're asking is more. Don't pick a winner. Don't pick a fuel or a policy. Let's pick a policy that's fuel neutral, for example, for transportation, and incentivize the country and the consumers and the fleets to change our fuel behavior through some incentives. So there was a Natural Gas Act in Congress over the last 3 years that never got passed in the Senate and the House, specific to natural gas, trying to emulate what was there for the electric vehicle coalition, but it never got passed. Again, it's a tough time at our federal level to balance. So we'd like to see a national energy policy. That would be nice to see our federal government step forward and do that. It's been a long time since we've had one.
Right.
So that would be a nice thing. Again, thinking about domestic security, the environment, as well as the economy, job creation around a national energy policy.
And what's the interplay with the military, our domestic military installations? Is there any push to get them to convert to natural gas? Because that seems like it would be a large market as well.
Yeah, on the military basis, you can see using natural gas, and there has been a pushback in the early and mid-90s to look at natural gas on our military basis, and several bases did build infrastructure for the vehicles that commute around. When we come to the military, it's getting fuel to our mission and to our operations is very critical.
Right.
And if we have to, so we'll look at liquefied natural gas as an option for them. But diesel and jet fuel still seem to play the role for the military right now in theaters out there.
Right, but that's in the foreign, like forward operating
Right.
bases and those. But for our domestic installations, we're looking at more securing our domestic energy supplies and making sure that our facilities keep running in the event of an emergency. And it seems that if we have such a big supply of natural gas, that may be a good transition for us, or no?
Yeah, I think so. It definitely is a good fuel there, especially for the buses and heavy-duty vehicles on the site. Electric vehicles moving small amount of people around make a great opportunity on the bases as well. So, again, the electric is a domestic fuel, natural gas is a domestic fuel. We should be looking at that. And post office, some of our government services, the postal deliveries, right? They follow the same route. They make a great application for alternative fuels. Why can't they be on an alternative fuel? They should be. Yeah. So we're seeing, I think, with this administration, a look at, through the government, to look at those vehicles for alternative fuels. So we're excited to see what might come down the pipe there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit, David. A few months ago, we had China Energy in here on the show, and we were talking about some of the foreign direct investment that the Asian countries, especially China, are bringing in here into North America, specifically here in the Rocky Mountain region. And there were discussions about looking at our natural gas for potential export into the Asian markets. Can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, it's been a conversation sort of in the background, but what are the implications of that, and what does that mean for us here in the U.S.?
Yeah, and I think that conversation is so new, right, just in the last 5 years. And, 8 years ago, we were building import terminals into our country because we thought we were running out of natural gas. So today, in North America, we have the ability to import 19 BCF a day, which is almost a third of our consumption. So we, in the U.S., we consume about we produce and consume about 65 billion cubic feet a day of natural gas. So we thought we were running out of natural gas, so we were like China. We were looking to import it from other countries because we needed to keep the lights on and the industrial uses and our homes warm. And what happened was we discovered this abundant natural gas in North America. So those import terminals are sitting there idle. We're not using them. We're importing about a BCF to 1.5 BCF a day to keep the terminals cold. So we have all these idle investments sitting on our coast. So many of those companies have been looking at turning those facilities around to make them export terminals. So in the U.S., you have to have federal approval to export natural gas out of the country. So you have to file with the federal government Department of Energy, and then they review the application. So there's one terminal, proposed terminal that has been approved in Louisiana. So it's Sabine Pass, which is an import terminal being turned around to be an export terminal, owned and operated by Cheniere, the company. So they have gotten federal approval to export to countries with the free trade agreement and countries without the free trade agreement. So they have a 20-year license. So now that they have approval, they have to get the financing, which they have done, and they have to get the contracts from countries or power utilities around the world, which they have done. And that plant, that terminal is now under construction to do exporting. So that'll be the first terminal. There has been, and that'll do maybe 2 BCF a day, 2 billion cubic feet a day of export. And there have been 6 other proposed terminals that would equal about 12 BCF a day of export that the federal government is now looking at. They haven't been approved. The concern I think people have, industrial consumers and others, is what would happen with the price of natural gas if we begin to export the fuel that we have here. And I think that's there's been several studies done looking at the price impact, the elasticity of natural gas with demand, and it's still being evaluated by the federal government, whether they're going to allow one at a time and see how it goes, or they're going to allow allow these other facilities to be built.
If you had a crystal ball, what do you think might happen in this area?
Well, we don't know. There's just too many uncertainties.
Okay.
But when I read what other people think, I don't study that as my profession. But there are several institutions out there and colleges that have studied that, and they're forecasting 4 to 6 BCF a day of export in the U.S. So right now we've got 2 BCF approved. And so we're seeing countries like Japan and China and Korea, who are net importers of natural gas, looking at the U.S. because we have a very stable political environment as a producer of energy. So they look at us as a safe haven for natural gas versus some of the other countries in the Middle East that also export natural gas.
Sure.
Well, so this has been an amazing conversation. So if there are consumers like myself that are pretty jazzed about natural gas vehicles, what would be the next step for them? How do they, if they want to get involved in the discussion, how would they do that? How can they support Encana's efforts? What would you suggest?
Yeah, there's several ways they could approach it, and I think the first is just get more information. So there's a national website. NGV America has a website, so you can just Google NGV America. I think it's ngva.org. Give you a lot of information about the options and what's going on at the federal level as well, and how to learn more about it. And then at the state level, right here in Colorado, we have a Colorado Natural Gas Vehicle Coalition. It's being run right out of our Clean Cities program here in Denver, the American Lung Association. So they have a website as well. You can reach out and learn more. The second is really from our political level, is reach out to our local congressmen. As well, also at the federal level. Let them know that you're interested in using natural gas or alternative fuels here in Colorado, and let them know you want to be a voice, and it should be our voice at the federal and the House level. The other is to talk to the OEMs. Talk to your dealerships. Tell them you're interested. Let them know, because the more questions they get, they'll report back corporately that, hey, we're getting a lot of requests for whatever kind of product it might be, whether it's an SUV, pickup truck, or sedan. The more you ask, the more you engage the conversation, the more that conversation spreads. And there's some local conversion companies here in town. Weld County Garage up in Weld County does conversions. There's a small conversion company called Fuel Tech here in Commerce City that does conversions as well. So just take control. Yeah. If you're really interested, do your research, go out and look for it. You can call Encana and some other fuel providers and find out what the options are. So it's exciting, but it's daunting. It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
So we're really working hard to get our manufacturers to give us options, so we don't have to figure all this out. We can just go to the dealership and say, I'd like that Dodge Ram.
Right.
I'd like that in natural gas, please.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. David Hill, thank you for joining us, and for all of the things that Encana is doing in this area. I mean, you're facilitating these very large conversations, as well as this movement into natural gas conversion across the board in so many business areas, and I think that's so exciting, and we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity to come share the news.
Kelly, so much fun to always do this show with you. I always gain so much insight on these areas I don't know much about.
Well, yeah, and what it indicates also is that we as consumers, we are moving into an era where we need to be more proactive, and we need to take a look at we've got a lot of choices, and we want to make good, educated decisions. And so it's really part of the impetus is on us to go out and research these things and talk to a lot of people and have conversations like we have on this show, and really discuss how can we move our economy forward. And two things strike me. One, the American Lung Association is involved in natural gas vehicles. Like, they wouldn't be involved if it wasn't better for us, and cutting our emissions and everything. And the job creation, we need that right now.
Yes.
And we need to secure our domestic supplies. So it all wraps up in this neat package, and that I think the future's right now. It's not in the future, it's right now.
It's right now, and there are so many resources and so many ways to engage with organizations like Encana as well as Rapid Tech Transit that you work with. So again, just to go over this, take action today. There's ngva.org. You can go to Encana.com and reach out to them, and they can help you understand where the infrastructure is for your fleet. They can pass on the information for those vendors who can help you transition your fleet vehicles and all of those things. There's the Colorado Natural Gas Vehicle Coalition. The OEMs and dealers are certainly those great resources that will help you get to that next level to transition to vehicles. And always, 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 those legislators, both state and federal, are those great resources that will move policy in the direction that we need it, and not just continuously circle in this conversation around traditional fuels. It'll really drive this conversation forward if we engage. And Kelly, as always, rapidtechtransit.com, helping bring new energy solutions to the forefront every single day. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Have a great weekend, and join us next week for Driving Force Radio.